Democracy, one of the most widely used forms of government in the world. At its core, it revolves around a simple idea: the people should have a say in how their country is run. Here's how it works. Instead of one person making every decision, citizens vote to choose the leaders who will represent them. Those leaders are expected to make laws, manage the country, and remain accountable to the people who elected them. That's why elections are so important. If citizens become unhappy with their leaders, they usually have the opportunity to vote them out and choose someone else. The idea is that political power ultimately comes from the people, not from birth, wealth, or force. The mistake many people make is thinking democracy means everyone agrees. It doesn't. Different opinions, debates, and disagreements are actually a normal part of the system. The goal isn't complete agreement. It's giving people a voice in how decisions are made. That's the key. Democracy isn't about creating perfect leaders. It's about giving citizens the power to choose them, question them, and replace them when necessary. Because in a democracy, the government is meant to serve the people, not the other way around. Republic, a word that's often confused with democracy. Many people use the two interchangeably, but they don't actually mean the same thing. Here's how it works. In a republic, citizens elect representatives to make decisions and govern on their behalf. Those leaders don't have unlimited power. They're expected to follow a constitution or set of laws that defines what the government can and cannot do. That's why many modern countries are both democracies and republics at the same time. Citizens vote for their leaders, making them democratic, while those leaders are also bound by a constitution, making them republics. The mistake many people make is thinking a republic is the opposite of a democracy. It isn't. Democracy describes who holds political power, the people. A republic describes how that power is exercised, through elected representatives operating under the rule of law. That's the key. A republic is designed to balance the will of the people with the limits of a constitution. Elections choose the leaders, but the law limits their authority, because in a republic, no leader is supposed to be above the rules. Monarchy, one of the oldest forms of government in human history. Instead of citizens choosing the nation's leader, the position is usually inherited within a royal family. Here's how it works. A king, queen, or emperor serves as the head of state, with power passing from one generation to the next. In some monarchies, the monarch holds significant political authority. In others, their role is largely symbolic, while elected officials run the government. That's why not all monarchies are the same. An absolute monarchy gives the monarch broad control over the country. A constitutional monarchy limits the monarch's power through a constitution, with most governing done by elected representatives. The mistake many people make is assuming every monarchy is ruled entirely by a king or queen. Today, many monarchies function as democracies, where the monarch represents the nation, while the government is elected by the people. That's the key. A monarchy is defined by how the head of state is chosen, through inheritance rather than elections. But how much power that monarch actually has depends entirely on the country's system of government. Dictatorship, a form of government where power is concentrated in the hands of a single ruler or a small ruling group. Unlike a democracy, the people have little or no ability to remove those in power through free elections. Here's how it works. A dictator gains and maintains control by centralizing authority, often limiting political opposition, controlling major institutions, and restricting criticism of the government. As a result, most important decisions are made by a small number of people rather than by elected representatives. That's why dictatorships often have fewer political freedoms. Opposition parties may be banned, elections may not be free or competitive, and independent media is often restricted. The goal is to reduce challenges to the ruler's authority. The mistake many people make is thinking every dictatorship looks the same. They don't. Some rely heavily on the military, others on political parties, and some hold elections that exist, but don't provide voters with a genuine choice. That's the key. A dictatorship isn't defined by whether a country has elections or a constitution. It's defined by where real power ultimately rests. When one ruler or a small group can govern without meaningful accountability, the system functions as a dictatorship. Communism, one of the most debated political and economic systems in history. Some view it as a vision of equality. Others associate it with some of the 20th century's most authoritarian governments. Understanding the idea begins with separating the theory from how it has been practiced. Here's how it works. In communist theory, major resources and industries are owned collectively rather than by private individuals. The goal is to create a classless society where wealth is shared and everyone's needs are met instead of being driven by profit. That's why communism is often contrasted with capitalisms. Rather than businesses and property being privately owned, the economy is intended to be owned and managed collectively for the benefit of society as a whole. The mistake many people make is assuming every country that has called itself communist has matched the original theory. In practice, many self-described communist states have been governed by a single political party with strong centralized control, leading to systems that looked very different from the ideal. That's the key. Communism is built around the idea of collective ownership and economic equality. But like many political ideologies, there's often a significant difference between the theory on paper and the way it's been implemented in the real world. Socialism, a political and economic system that's often confused with communism. While the two share some ideas, they are not the same thing. Here's how it works. Socialism supports greater public or collective ownership of key industries and a larger role for the government in providing services like healthcare, education, or transportation. The goal is to reduce inequality by ensuring that essential resources are more widely accessible. That's why socialism exists on a spectrum. Some countries combine socialist policies with democratic elections and private businesses, while others give the government much greater control over the economy. It isn't a single model that's applied the same way everywhere. The mistake many people make is thinking socialism means the government owns everything. In reality, many socialist systems still allow private businesses, private property, and market competition. The difference is that the government generally plays a larger role in regulating the economy and providing public services. That's the key. Socialism isn't defined by eliminating private ownership. It's defined by increasing collective responsibility and government involvement in the economy to promote greater social welfare. How far that involvement goes depends entirely on the country implementing it. Theocracy, a form of government where religion plays the central role in governing the country. Instead of separating religion from the state, the two are closely connected. Here's how it works. In a theocracy, political authority is based on religious beliefs, religious law, or religious leaders. Depending on the country, religious officials may hold the highest offices, or elected leaders may still govern while being required to follow religious principles. That's why not every theocracy looks the same. Some are ruled directly by religious leaders, while others combine elected institutions with religious oversight. What they share is that religion has a major influence on how laws are created and enforced. The mistake many people make is assuming a country becomes a theocracy simply because most of its citizens follow the same religion. That's not what defines it. A country can be deeply religious while still keeping its government separate from religious authority. That's the key. A theocracy isn't defined by how religious the population is. It's defined by how much religious authority shapes the government itself. When religion becomes the foundation of political power and law, the system functions as a theocracy. Anarchy, a word that often sounds like chaos, destruction, or complete disorder, but the actual idea behind it is more specific than most people think. Here's how it works. Anarchy refers to a system without a central government or ruling authority. There is no single group or leader with official power over the population. Instead, organization is meant to happen voluntarily, through communities, cooperation, or self-governed groups. That's why anarchy is often misunderstood. Many people assume it automatically means violence or collapse, but in theory, it simply means the absence of a formal state. Different groups may still create rules, but those rules are not enforced by a centralized government. Now you know every major type of government. You might also like this video, so click here to watch it. Have a nice day.